Palantir hoarding data caches on US citizens?
There's this internet meme out there that somehow I am super in bed with Palantir.
Miriam Adelson, an Israeli donor, to give millions of dollars to his campaign. Then Trump have pro-Israeli policies.
There's this notion that we owe Israel something.
One of the realities is that Jews do not believe that Jesus Christ is the Messiah, and this is a little spicy. I'm not trying to make this too controversial, but...
Welcome back to Rattlesnake TV, guys. JD Vance has just done a TP USA event, and this one was extremely interesting. It's very cool to see the vice president just take questions like this, because they did not hold back on him and gave some serious criticisms about himself and also the administration. So I'm going to be asking your opinions on this throughout. The comments section should be on fire here. So let's get into the first one, where Vance is asked something that is often brought up about him, a very controversial topic, which is his links to Palantir.
How you doing?
Good. I have a question. Do you condone large private corporations such as Palantir hoarding data caches on US citizens?
No, I don't condone it. And here's the thing. So I get asked about Palantir a lot because there's this internet meme out there that somehow I am super in bed with Palantir. And here's the thing that I'd say about this. Palantir is a private company. They sometimes do a useful service, and sometimes they're going to do things that we don't like. You should be demanding that your representatives do two things when it comes to Palantir or when it comes to any other technology company. Number one, protecting your data. What's going on with artificial intelligence is going to mean that there are massive inducements to steal your data, to harvest it, and to use it against you to sell digital advertisements. That is not what I believe in, and I've been fighting against it, whether it's Palantir or any other technology company, literally before I ran for office. When I ran for office, I was criticized by Republicans in my Republican Senate primary because I was talking then about Google and Facebook harvesting our data. It's unacceptable. I don't care who does it. I don't want them to do it. Number two, and this is also very important, what's going on with artificial intelligence, we got to be worried about large-scale surveillance, okay? Everything, when you asked about Palantir, do you know that every time you make a credit card transaction, the credit card companies are collecting data on how you spend your money? Do you know that every time you linger over a link on the internet for more than a half second, the search engines are collecting data on you so that they can sell you advertisements? One of the biggest questions for American policy over the next 10 years is how to ensure that you are a sovereign citizen. And you cannot be a sovereign citizen if any private corporation or any government can steal something from you that belongs to you.
Okay, so there's been a lot of speculation about JD Vance's links to Palantir and also more broadly his links to what is called the PayPal Mafia. And I'll explain to you exactly what this all means. This is an old Silicon Valley circle around Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, and their early tech ventures. Palantir itself is this ultra powerful data analytics company that's done major works with the CIA, the NSA, and other government agencies. Basically, it is the deep state tech arm that deals with surveillance and intelligence contracts. And the major link here is that Peter Thiel, who founded Palantir, was one of Vance's biggest early backers. Thiel poured millions into Vance's venture capital fund and then later bankrolled his Senate run, effectively launching his political career. So when people say that JD Vance might be a puppet of the tech elite, this is what they're talking about. The idea is that he presents himself as a Rust Belt conservative, somebody who looks out for the average man, but behind the scenes, he's really tied to the same technocrat, billionaire, elitist Silicon Valley types that he supposedly fights against. So yeah, I mean, there is a tension there in terms of his story. There is this contrast between his anti-elite rhetoric and the fact that he has some of the most powerful and secretive figures in tech that helped him build his platform. So it raises an interesting question. Is this just how politics works? Do you just have to have these powerful backers to even be a part of the game? And is this something that everybody has? If you're in politics like this, you're going to have friends in high places. And Vance is just playing the game, and Vance is authentic in his mission as he says he is? Or is there something deeper here? Is there something to be a little bit more skeptical about? What do you guys think? Now, this just gets better and better, but before we get there, I need to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Ground News. Check this out, guys. I would definitely have missed this story on Twitter and YouTube and these different places if I hadn't have gone to Ground News today and seen that the US will share tech to let South Korea build a nuclear power submarine, says Trump. This comes in the wake of North Korea's military advancements and also another nuclear story here. Trump asks Pentagon to immediately resume testing US nuclear weapons. And this is the beauty of Ground News. They round up tens of thousands of sources from all different locations and they put them together in one place. It makes things so much easier when you're trying to get a good grasp on the news. And in an ever more politically divided landscape, guys, you can go to these stories, you can see how they're being covered, how many total news sources, how many left, how many right. We can see the bias distribution, we can see the factuality, the ownership. There are so many fantastic tools that you can use to give yourself the best possible news diet. And with all of this value in one place, Ground News is also offering Rattlesnake TV listeners a huge whopping 40% off the Vantage plan, which is what I use. All you've got to do, you go to ground.news/rattlesnake. That is ground.news/rattlesnake. Links will be at the top of the comments and in the bio, or hit the QR code on the screen right here and start your Vantage plan today. And remember, guys, when you support a company like Ground News, you're supporting a company that helps keep independent creators like myself afloat. So with that, let's get back to it.
I have a question about Israel and Trump's policy towards it. Do you think it's a conflict of interest for Miriam Adelson, an Israeli donor, to give millions of dollars to his campaign and then Trump have pro-Israeli policies?
Well, if you're asking, do I think the President of the United States has a conflict of interest? No, I do not, because I know how the President of the United States makes his decisions and I see it behind the scenes. Now, as the President himself has said, Miriam Adelson, who, by the way, I know and I have a very good relationship with her, she is very clear about the fact. She doesn't hide the fact that she really loves Israel, and that is part of what motivates her political giving. That is a reality. At the same time, the President of the United States is America first through and through. And let me give you just a couple of examples of this. Number one, we have heard from some pro-Israel voices, some people who really love the state of Israel, that they don't want us to have a relationship with certain Middle Eastern countries. Well, the president, his attitude is, we need to build relationships with any country where we have shared interests, and he's going to do it if it's in the interests of the American people, and he's done exactly that. Number two, there were people, and I remember this criticism of the President of the United States, I just raised it in the context of a conversation that I had with Charlie. I remember when people said that the President of the United States was going to get us into a multi-100,000 troop regime change war for Israel. This was 4 months ago, this was 6 months ago. Now, the people who accused the President of the United States of wanting to get us into a regime change war for Israel, I wonder if they stepped back and said, you know what, we were wrong about that, because the President of the United States did not want to get us into a regime change war for any other country. He wanted to knock out a nuclear facility and get everybody back home, and that's exactly what he did. So I understand there's some frustrations out there, but I think the President of the United States, more than any president of my lifetime, is willing to stand up to anybody if he thinks it puts the interests of the American people first. Thank you.
Okay, so this is another interesting one here. One of the things that Trump has been most heavily criticized about from left and right is his relationship with the Adelsons. In particular, how this reflects on his image as an outsider who doesn't need anybody's money. The Adelsons are billionaire casino moguls with clear foreign policy interests, and they poured tens of millions, hundreds of millions at this stage, into Trump's campaigns and super PACs. And speaking of their agenda, Trump does have the ability to say the quiet part out loud sometimes.
Every president for decades said, we're going to do it. The difference is I kept my promise and officially recognized the capital of Israel and moved the American embassy to Jerusalem. Isn't that right, Miriam? Look at Miriam. She's back there. Stand up, Miriam. Miriam and Sheldon would come into the office. They'd call me. He'd call me. I think they had more trips to the White House than anybody else I could think of. Look at her sitting there so innocently. She's got 60 billion in the bank, 60 billion. And I think she's saying no more. And she loves Israel, but she loves it, and they would come in, and her husband was a very aggressive man, but I loved him. He was a very aggressive, very supportive of me. And he'd call up, can I come over and see you? I say, Sheldon, I'm the President of the United States. It doesn't work that way. He'd come in. But they were very responsible for so much, including getting me thinking about Golan Heights, which is probably one of the greatest things to ever happen. She loves this country. Her and her husband are so incredible. We miss him so dearly. But I actually asked her, I'm going to get her in trouble with this, but I actually asked her once, I said, so Miriam, I know you love Israel. What do you love more, the United States or Israel? She refused to answer. That might mean Israel, I must say. We love you. Thank you, darling, for being here. That's a great honor.
So, anyways, I mean, make of that what you will. But anyways, after these donations, Trump's administration advanced several policies that lined up perfectly with their long-held goals, moving the US embassy to Jerusalem, pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal, and deepening America's alignment with Israel. And for people on the left and even on the right, the optics of this one have at times been a little bit hard to ignore. The self-styled populist who can't be bought seemed to be moving in lockstep with two of his wealthiest donors who effectively functioned as foreign policy lobbyists with American passports. And it actually raises a pretty uncomfortable question, which is that can even somebody like Donald Trump, who has billions and billions of dollars in the bank, actually compete in this world against this massive machine without taking lobbyist money? But then there's another argument here, which is that this is just democracy in action. This is just citizens lobbying for what they believe in. The Adelsons are American citizens and they want to lobby for their interests, and perhaps they believe that American and Israeli interests are one and that what's best for Israel is best for America, and that's why they're really doing it. Perhaps this is a matter of free speech. These people are allowed to use their resources to do whatever they want. So anyways, definitely looking forward to reading all of your comments about these topics. So with that, let's move on. JD Vance absolutely cooks here.
Vice President JD Vance, good evening.
Thank you.
My question is, the Republican Party, they stand for the right to bear arms. A lot of things the founding fathers really made a priority.
Sure.
And I feel as if requiring Christianity in public schools goes against the founding fathers' wish of freedom of religion. What do you think about that?
Well, I guess who is saying that we require Christianity in public schools?
Just from what I've seen on the media and the news, it seems like the Trump administration had wanted to make praying in schools and Christian values incorporated.
Here's the thing when you talk about forcing, I'm gonna answer your question, forcing Christianity, forcing people to pray. There's a liberal idea out there that I think is wrong, and that's that liberalism is the source of freedom of religion. And actually, if you go back to the original founding documents of the United States of America, if you go back to the Anglo legal tradition, well before there was ever a United States of America, what you find is that freedom of religion is actually a Christian concept. And the reason it's a Christian concept is very simple. Because Christianity, Imago Dei, the idea that we are all made in the image of our Creator, means that we must respect the free will of every single person. Now, part of that is you have a conversation with people. Having free will doesn't mean that you're not allowed to encourage somebody, that you're not allowed to talk to somebody about your faith, that you're not allowed to talk about certain values in school. When our founders talked about freedom of religion, they didn't mean you weren't allowed to say a Christian prayer in a public school or that you weren't allowed to talk about Jesus Christ in a public forum. They just meant that nobody could force you to profess the Christian faith. That had to come from your own free will. And I believe that, and I think every Christian who I've ever spoken to believes that the source is the Christian, the source of your faith, the Christian understanding must be your own free will. But here's the thing about Christian values. There are a lot of Christian values out there that I think that we've just sort of assumed and we've in fact taken for granted. Christian values are the idea that you should respect every single person as an individual, whatever the color of their skin, created in the image of God. That's a Christian concept. And in fact, it was a Christian empire, Great Britain, that abolished slavery to begin with. The idea that we should eliminate child sacrifice. What did the Christian settlers find when they came to the New World? They found a lot of civilizations that were murdering babies in weird religious rituals. It was Christianity that said we don't kill children just because they're somehow inconvenient to people. A lot of the things, human rights, the very idea that human beings have rights are a Christian concept. And so I'd ask you, my assumption based on the question is that you're skeptical of Christianity, or at least of certain public professions of Christianity. One of my favorite Bible verses is, "By your fruits ye shall know them." And I think that the fruits of the Christian faith are the most moral, the most just, and the most prosperous civilization in history. I make no apologies for believing that Christianity is the pathway to God. I make no apologies for thinking that Christian values are an important foundation of this country, but I'm not gonna force you to believe in anything because that's not what God wants and that's not what I want either.
So,
Go ahead.
for the school system, do you agree that there should be Christian implementation, or do you think that school system should be neutral and be focused on science, literature, reading, writing, arithmetic?
Well, I reject the idea that anything is purely neutral. Okay, there are, for example, let's take a basic scientific fact, and this is a little spicy. I'm not trying to make this too controversial, but take the basic scientific fact of, can you take a pill to change your biological gender? Okay, now that's something that 15 years ago, quite literally, every single scientist in the Western world would have said, absolutely not, that's crazy, and now people will. I think the premise of your question, I don't totally share it because I don't think perfect neutrality is possible. What is it? You talk about history. Was Christopher Columbus a great explorer, or was he a guy who committed genocide against the native populations? These debates, I'm happy to have them, but I reject the idea that there are truly neutral debates. Anybody who's telling you their view is neutral likely has an agenda to sell you, and I'm at least honest about the fact that I think the Christian foundation of this country is a good thing.
Okay, so Vance did very well there. He exposed the lie, the very lie at the heart of modern secularism. This guy tries to suggest, as so many people do these days, that the secularists are the ones who are neutral and rational, and the Christians have an agenda. This is absurd. There is no such thing as neutral. Every single worldview out there starts from a set of axioms, assumptions or presuppositions, in some cases, about truth, morality, and human nature. And secularists just demand that we accept theirs without an explanation or justification. They pretend that their assumptions are objective and enlightened, whereas in reality, they are just as ideological as everyone else's. They just smuggle in their beliefs about human autonomy and moral relativism and the supremacy of self-expression, and they call it reason. The problem, though, is that they want power and just pretend that they don't. They want unanimous control over education and law and media and culture, all justified by this fake neutrality. And let me reiterate that their worldview is not a neutral one. They have a moral vision that rejects good and evil, and it replaces it with whatever happens to serve the individual or the state in the moment. Christianity, by contrast, offers a consistent moral and philosophical framework rooted in something higher than human whims. So secularism isn't neutral, it's hollow and incoherent and parasitic on the moral order Christianity built. So we need to call this out when we see it, like Vance just did, and stop letting these people pose as the arbiters of reason, when their entire worldview literally depends on us accepting their arbitrary axioms as truth. We need to stop doing that. We need to call it what it is, which is a rival faith, a power-hungry ideology that's just pretending to not be one. Anyways, on to the last bit now, and the questions don't get any easier for Vance.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm a Christian man, and I'm just confused why that there's this notion that we might have owe Israel something, or that they're our greatest ally, or that we have to support this multi-hundred-billion-dollar foreign aid package to Israel to cover this, to quote Charlie Kirk, ethnic cleansing in Gaza. I'm just confused why this idea has come around, considering the fact that not only does their religion not agree with ours, but also openly supports the prosecution of ours.
Yeah, so Let's say a few things about this. First of all, when the President of the United States says America first, that means that he pursues the interests of Americans first. That is our entire foreign policy. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to have alliances, that you're not going to work with other countries from time to time. And that is what the president believes, is that Israel, sometimes they have similar interests to the United States and we're going to work with them in that case. Sometimes they don't have similar interests to the United States. And this example, the most recent Gaza peace plan that all of us have been working on very hard for the past few weeks, the president of the United States could only get that peace deal done by actually being willing to apply leverage to the state of Israel. So when people say that Israel is somehow manipulating or controlling the president of the United States, they're not controlling this president of the United States, which is one of the reasons why we'd be able to have some of the success that we've had in the Middle East. Now, you ask about, sort of Jews disagreeing with Christians on certain religious ideas. Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the realities is that Jews do not believe that Jesus Christ is the Messiah. Obviously, Christians do believe that. There are some significant theological disagreements between Christians and Jews. My attitude is, let's have those conversations. Let's have those disagreements when we have them. But if there are shared areas of interest, we ought to be willing to do that too. For example, one thing I really, really care about is the preservation of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. Christians believe that that is the site where Jesus Christ was crucified, and also that his tomb is right there as well. My attitude is, if we can work with our friends in Israel to make sure that Christians have safe access to that site, that's an obvious area of common interest. I am fine with that. What I'm not okay with is any country coming before the interests of American citizens, and it is important for all of us, assuming we're American citizens, to put the interest of our own country first. That's what we're gonna do. That's what we try to do every single day, I promise you.
All right, so really tough questions there. I mean, respect to Vance for doing this in the spirit of Charlie Kirk. Obviously, Charlie was somebody who loved open dialogue, free dialogue. And I mean, over the years, if you guys have been watching, how many of these videos did we cover of Charlie, where he was just speaking to people at these events, taking questions, and it's good to see that that lives on at these events. And this is the vice president here doing this, just taking questions, not scripted. Do we ever see Kamala Harris doing this? No. So anyways, really looking forward to reading your comments below. Don't forget to like the video, smash the subscribe button, check out Ground News. Their links will be just below there, top of the comments and in the bio. And if you'd like to watch another one, right here. Till next time, I'm Jake. This is RattlesnakeTV, keeping you armed and dangerous.